Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Will someone who knows how text to Swayam what it was that I said to her? So we're on chapter 8 of Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. The title of the talk, delivered in October of 1896 in London, is Realization. So now he's coming to how to solve this very immense problem that he has been describing as Maya, and the prior attempts at resolving it, that because of our limitations, we're limited in scope. So he's going to come to how those seers managed to go beyond their limitations by transcending the realm of Maya. But he's going to develop that idea, as he always does. And so we'll start with this. We only know the universe from the point of view of beings with 5 senses. Suppose we obtain another sense. The whole universe must change for us. Suppose we had a magnetic sense. It is quite possible that we might find millions and millions of forces in existence which we do not know, and for which we have no present sense or feeling. And as so many things of Vivekananda, of course, we know this is what has come to pass. Just in astrophysics and astronomy, there are now, we do not sense radio waves. Well, we do, but we don't know it. But now we have radio telescopes. We don't register gamma rays, but now there are gamma ray telescopes. We don't register X-rays, but there are X-ray telescopes. And there are now even gravity wave telescopes. So we have gone beyond the 5 senses, and indeed, the universe has changed for us. The universe of Copernicus and Galileo was magnified because they magnified their sense of sight. Then we began to make all kinds of discoveries about the universe because of the magnification of the sense of sight. Then we began to discover all these other forces. And so now we've developed telescopes for many of those forces, registering devices that give us an idea what it is that's coming to us from an X-ray source, a gamma ray source, a radio source, a gravity wave source. So our concept of the universe is changing very rapidly. For those of you who keep up with what's going on in chemistry and physics and astrophysics and so on, it's absolutely mind-boggling what's going on. And yet, the reason I make a point of this is that it is still within Maya. So though we learn a great deal more about the universe of Maya, we do not really expand our knowledge of our true being that much. So it's a fascinating thing that we are working very hard with the great encouragement of Vivekananda at the time that he was alive, finding the truths of science. But as Swami Prabhavananda once remarked, trying to understand the world, trying to understand the universe through the senses, through science, no matter how you magnify them, is like trying to empty the ocean of consciousness with a teaspoon. And so now we'll have Vivekananda's development of the idea of what happened when the seers went beyond the realm of Maya, time, space, and causation. But before we go ahead, are there any comments or questions that anyone has? All right. Suppose we had a magnetic sense. It is quite possible that we might then find millions and millions of forces in existence which we do not know and for which we have no present sense or feeling. Our senses are limited, very limited indeed. And within these limitations exists what we call our universe. And our God is the solution of that universe. But that cannot be the solution of the whole problem. But man cannot stop there. He is a thinking being and wants to find a solution which will comprehensively explain all the universes. He wants to see, does everyone understand what he means by all the universes? All right. Which will comprehend.
Sorry, I do not understand what is meant by all the universes.
The universes of all of these other possibilities within Maya. And we now know that the physicists are saying there are multiple universes. Swamiji knew it from his his Nirvikalpa Samadhi and other great psychic and spiritual attainments. There's more than just the universe that we know of our five senses. And this is now what the physicists are this is the conclusion that they're reaching, that there are multiple universes. You can read about that, by the way, in recent issues of Scientific American.
Okay.
The human being is a thinking being and wants to find a solution which will comprehensively explain all the universes. He wants to see a world which is at once the world of men and of gods and of all possible beings, and to find a solution which will explain all phenomena. I think I said in this class last week that when Sri Ramakrishna was asked by his brother to get more education so that he could earn more money for the family, Sri Ramakrishna refused and said, I do not want a breadwinning education. I do not want a breadwinning education. I want to know that by which all else is known. And of course, that was for him the Divine Mother in the form of Kali, who told him everything. We see, and back to Swamiji, we must first find the universe, which includes all universes. We must find something which by itself must be the material running through all these various planes of existence, whether we apprehend it through the senses or not. And of course, what he means by that is what is explained in chapter 3 of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. There is much to be understood through the psychic, which is a whole other realm of our being that most of us know nothing about, including myself. The yogi attains that psychic power, whether we apprehend it through the senses or not. There are other ways of apprehending. If we could possibly, but it's still within time, space, and causation. It's nothing beyond time, space, and causation. It's just that within time, space, and causation, there's much more, as the physicists are discovering, than we have previously known. If we could possibly find something which we could know as the common property of the lower as well as the higher worlds, then our problem would be solved. By the higher worlds, he means the spiritual worlds, not the psychic worlds. Even if by the sheer force of logic alone, we could understand that there must be one basis of all existence, then our problem might approach to some sort of solution. But this solution certainly cannot be obtained only through the world we see and know, because it is only a partial view of the whole. Our only hope then lies in penetrating deeper. The early thinkers discovered that the farther they were from the center, the more marked were the variations and differentiations. I'm going to read that again. That's so crucial to our understanding of what the Swami is saying. Our only hope lies in penetrating deeper. The early thinkers discovered that the farther they were from the center, the more marked were the variations and differentiations, and that the nearer they approached to the center, the nearer they were to unity. The nearer we are to the center of a circle, the nearer we are to the common ground, which all in which the nearer we are to the common ground in which all the radii meet. And the farther we are from the center, the more divergent is our radial line from the others. The more divergent is our radial line from the others. The external world is far away from the center, and so there is no common ground in it where all the phenomena of existence can meet. The external world is far away from the center of our being. The external world is far away from the center of our being, and there is no common ground in it where all the phenomena of existence can meet. At best, the external world is but one part of the whole of phenomena. There are other parts, the mental, the moral, and the intellectual, the various planes of existence. The mental, by the way, by the mental, he means the psychic. He gestures to this when he says, each soul is potentially divine. The goal of human life is to manifest that divinity through work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, one or more of all these. Be free. Do the work and be free. So that's what he means by mental here. There are other parts, the mental, that is the psychic, the moral, that is the aspect of the mind as a thinking being, and the intellectual. The intellectual, of course, by this he means the buddhi, the discriminating faculty of human beings. So he's gesturing to the levels within a human being. There are other parts, the mental, the moral, and the intellectual, the various planes of existence, and to take up only one and find a solution of the whole out of that one is simply impossible. We first, therefore, want to find somewhere a center from which, as it were, all the other planes of existence start. And standing there, we should try to find a solution. That is the proposition. The proposition for what? The proposition for the possibility of realization. And where is that center? It is within us. The ancient sages penetrated deeper and deeper until they found that in the innermost core of the human soul is the center of the whole universe. I'm going to read that again. This is, again, logical cases are built by blocks. This is one of the blocks. The ancient sages penetrated deeper and deeper until they found that in the innermost core of the human soul is the center of the whole universe. Now, the secret to understanding this sentence is that there is only one soul. There are many jivas, which are reflections of that soul. But that one soul is the center of the universe, that the human soul, which is one soul, is the center of the whole universe. And the planes gravitate, and all the planes gravitate toward that one point. That is the common ground. And standing there alone can we find a common solution. So the question, who made this world, is not very philosophical, nor does its solution amount to anything. This, the Katha Upanishad speaks in very figurative language. There was, in ancient times, a very rich man who made a certain sacrifice which required that he should give away everything that he had. Now, this man was not sincere. He wanted to get the fame and glory of having made the sacrifice, but he was only giving things which were of no further use to him. Old cows, barren, blind, and lame. He had a boy called Nachiketas. This boy saw that his father was not doing what was right, that he was breaking his vow, but he did not know what to say to him. In India, father and mother are living gods to their children. And so the boy approached the father with greatest respect and humbly inquired of him, "Father, to whom are you going to give me? For your sacrifice requires that everything shall be given away." The father was very much vexed at this question and replied, "What do you mean, boy? A father giving away his own son?" The boy asked the question a second and a third time. And then the angry father answered, "Thee I give unto death, Yama. Thee I give unto Yama." And the story goes on to say that the boy went to Yama, the god of death. Yama was the first man who died. Now, for those of you who don't know the story of Yama, this is absolutely fascinating. Yama was the first man who died. He went to heaven and became the governor of all the Pitris, all the good people who did go and live with him for a long time. All the people who die, all the Pitris, all the good people who die go and live with him for a long time. He is a very pure and holy person, chaste and good, as his name, Yama, implies. And I don't know Sanskrit to tell you why it implies that. Does anybody else know why Yama implies chaste and good? Okay. So the boy went to Yama's world. But even gods are sometimes not at home. And 3 days this boy had to wait there. After the third day, Yama returned. "O learned one," said Yama, "you have been waiting here for 3 days without food, and you are a guest worthy of respect. Salutation to thee, O Brahman, and welfare to me. I am very sorry I was not at home, but for that I will make amends. Ask 3 boons, one for each day." And the boy asked, "My first boon is that my father's anger against me may pass away, that he will be kind to me and recognize me when you allow me to depart." So notice that the first was a very human wish. The first boon that he asked was a very human wish, that his father be restored to a kind of sanity and sweetness, and that his relationship with his father would be a sweet and healthy one. My first boon is that my father's anger against me may pass away, that he will be kind to me and recognize me when you allow me to depart. Yama granted this fully. The next boon that he wanted to know, the next boon was that he wanted to know about a certain sacrifice which took people to heaven. Now we have seen that the oldest idea which we got in the Samhita portion of the Vedas, yes, that now we have seen that the oldest idea which we have got in this Samhita portion of the Vedas was only about heaven, where they had brought bodies and where they had bright bodies and lived with the fathers. Gradually other ideas came, but they were not satisfying. There was still need for something higher. Living in heaven would not be very different from life in this world. At best, it would be only a very healthy, rich man's life, when with plenty of sense enjoyments and a sound body, which knows no disease. It would be this material world, only a little more refined. And we have seen the difficulty that the external material world can never solve, and we have seen the difficulty that the external material world can never solve the problem. So no heaven can solve the problem. Is there any question about that? The Swami has given what to many of us here in the West who have a different idea of heaven. Is that formulation of heaven clear, and does it make logical sense to you?
Brother Shankara Samesh again.
Yes.
Okay, so there is this, like, after you die, you go into heaven or hell, and also there's that.
No, forget about hell. There is no
okay,
hell.
okay, forget that. Or but there is also that when you die, you change your body like a cloth, and you get into another body.
Well,
And then
you may.
yeah.
Yes, if
So,
you take if you take the path of the fathers, you will take another body. Yes.
okay. So whose choice is it to take another body or go to heaven? Or
It's a matter of the state of your being at the time that you die. It's not a matter of choice. It's a matter of karma.
okay.
If you have unresolved desires, if you still have a wish to be part of this world of Maya, of time, space, and causation, then, and this is very clearly explained, by the way, in chapters 2 and 3 of the Gita, Krishna explains it. He goes on and amplifies it a bit later, but you can get a very clear idea of it in chapters 2 and 3 of the Gita, that it is our desire to be part of time, space, and causation that draws us back here. If indeed we are finished with that, or even nearly finished, that is to say, our preponderant desire is to be finished, even though there's still some prarabdha karma that causes desires to arise. Then we have, then our karma takes us to what is called the path of the saints, or the solar path. And we do not take a body, and we finish our manifestation, our fulfillment in this realm of the fathers. And Sri Ramakrishna said that I have created a special place for those of you who are my followers. And it's called Ramakrishna Loka. I've created a place for you. So, and Swami Prabhavananda was very affirmative about the fact that work as hard as you can in this lifetime to achieve liberation. If you don't achieve liberation, then at the end of your lifetime, you will either receive liberation if you're that close, or if there's still some work to do, but not work requiring another body, then you will go to the Ramakrishna Loka, or which is part of the realm of the saints.
Okay.
Is that clear enough, or is there something more? And please, if there's more, let's have it.
Yeah. So listen, I've just started this. So now, I had some idea about heaven from whatever I heard of. I had some idea of this. So now you have introduced, whole different paradigm of there's another loka, So
Well, Krishna speaks of it too.
yes,
in the Gita. He just in a bit more general terms. Sri Ramakrishna was explicit. This business about hell, by the way, Samesh. Here's the understanding of what the Western formulation has extended and made eternal, which is complete nonsense, as Vivekananda points out. What happens to you when you pass out of this body, we're told, is that you experience what amounts to a life review. The first part of the life review has to do with all of the pain and suffering, all of your transgressions of ahimsa, all of the pain and suffering that you have caused. And you don't just see it, you actually witness it, you actually experience it. You actually, the suffering that you caused another human being because of your carelessness or your ill temper or whatever it was, whatever they felt, you feel it. You feel it in your subtle body. And so everything, every bit is experienced. Then you enjoy the fruits of your merits. After having this life review, you have this life review of your merits, and you experience what it was that you brought to others in the way of uplift and joy and laughter, all of the, and love, all of the wonders of life. Then your karma takes over and you either return to the world of time, space, and causation, the realm of time, space, and causation, or as I said, you make this other. That's called the lunar path, the path of the fathers. It's the one over which Yama rules, the realm of the Pitris, the fathers. And, or if your karma is such, and Vivekananda says, your karma is not foreordained, and Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna, and for that matter, Krishna and the Gita, say your karma is not immutable. If you lean into spiritual practice, your karma changes. And so it's a decision. It's a question of priority. And that's what we're going to talk about this coming Sunday. What deserves your attention? What deserves your attention so that you purify your karma and find your way to realization or moksha, liberation, however you choose to think about it.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm lost here with
Okay, well, this
so
is
much information, and
well, of course. I've pointed you in the direction of the Gita.
mhm,
I'll also recommend the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna.
mhm,
Read those two books,
yes,
and the way to read them, Somesh, is to read them from the first to the last, and then begin at the beginning and read them again. That's
mhm,
true of both the Gita and the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna.
mhm,
Every time you read them, it becomes truly magical.
mhm,
Things just open up for you, open up for you. It's because something has changed in you. And so those two books. There are other books. I highly recommend Swami Ranganathananda's book. It's a very small book, only 83 pages, Divine Grace. And then there is a book that comes at us from a whole other realm, and that is Jill Bolte Taylor's book, My Stroke of Insight. And for you to understand why I recommend that book, rather than me take the classes time with it tonight, they've all heard about it quite a bit, I'm sure. There's a talk in the archives of our website on that book, Jill Bolte Taylor, My Stroke of Insight. And if you want to know more about why I recommend that book, I recommend you listen to that talk.
Okay. Right now my logical mind is rejecting a lot of things, to be honest. Like
Sure.
like you said that when Nichiket, sorry if I got his name wrong. Nachiketas. So when he was there at the gate, so when you die, you don't have a body. Okay, so there is no hunger, there's no food requirement, there is no. It's just like you don't.
So you say, sir.
Yeah, so I say so. I don't know, so I just. Yeah.
I'm not at all confident of that.
Yes. So that was my first thing was.
Why is it that we offer our food to those who are no longer present? There's a great understanding that those in the subtle body can indeed receive food. So I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying there is another understanding.
Okay. So I know it is like, if I'm not experienced, I'm rejecting it. That's my mind is. This is and that's not the right thing to do.
It is certainly not the scientific thing to do.
Correct.
Swami Vivekananda, in his preface to Raja Yoga, pleads with us. Please. These ideas will be very strange to you, he says. They will be. I'm paraphrasing. These ideas will seem outlandish to you. Take a scientific point of view. Don't reject them out of hand. Simply suspend your judgment. Then do the work to see if they actually are true. And I mean, when I say it's really touching to see Swami Vivekananda plead with us, because what he wrote in Raja Yoga, it's the only book he ever wrote. He never wrote any other book. He wrote Raja Yoga at the urgent request of his disciples. First the English disciples, and then the American disciples joined them in asking him to write that book. And so because what Patanjali suggests to us is so very at odds with particularly our modern experience, the Swami actually pleads with us not to reject these ideas out of hand. So you're very good and honest to say that there is that tendency, and you're very correct in saying it won't serve you well. It's not auspicious.
Yeah. No, listen. Like I said, this is my mind is rejecting, and I'm trying to tell it, like, that consider it's possible. We don't know that, so consider it is. You may be right, you may be wrong, and just be with it.
Exactly. Just be a good scientist about it.
Yeah.
A scientist looks at the data and does the experiments to prove or disprove.
Yeah.
And so this is what Vivekananda is asking of us. Yeah. So Mesh, I'm so glad that you're having this conversation because this is exactly what a class is about. It's not about just pouring information into our heads. It's about coming to some different grasp of what it is that we are as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what these spiritual classes are about. So I'm glad you're coming. Obviously, you feel that there's some reason to come back, so good for you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Anything?
Brother Shankara, this is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
And I am learning more about Yama now than ever before in my life. When I was growing up in India in 1950s and 60s, I was here by 70. So all I heard about Yama, even though his name is Yama Dharma Raja, Dharma is justice, Raja is king, and Yama is the death god. And nobody ever told about justice. Now I'm learning through all this that he actually, Nichiketa, could ask questions and get the boons from him. And they used to joke around us when we were young. If you make a sin, then your Yamadharma Raja is coming to take you. You better not do the sins, And we are.
See, this is that horrible use of fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yama is not to be feared, as the Swami says. He is a remarkable being, and not to be feared.
Yeah, he's the death of God and also justice, Dharma, Yama Dharma Raja. And that was never revealed to us when we were young and little. We used to laugh about it. Oh, he's going to go to Yamaloka. Yamaloka was portrayed as the bad world there.
Oh, yes. That's.
I'm glad I'm learning a lot more today about my own Hindu scriptures.
Good. Well, that's what Vivekananda is for.
That's right. Thank you so much.
He opens up so much for us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, dear. And thank you for telling us that. Anything else from anyone? All right. So heaven would be this material world, only a little more refined. And we have seen the difficulty that the external material world can never solve the problem. So no heaven can solve the problem. If this world cannot solve the problem, no multiplication of this world can do so, because we must always remember that matter is only an infinitesimal part of the phenomena of nature. Matter is only an infinitesimal part of the phenomena of nature. The vast part of phenomena which we actually see is not matter. For instance, in every moment of our life, what a great part is played by thought and feeling compared with the material phenomena outside. I'll repeat that. For instance, in every moment of our life, what a great part is played by thought and feeling compared with the material phenomena outside. How vast is this internal world with its tremendous activity? The sense phenomena are very small compared with it. The heaven solution commits this mistake. It insists that the whole of phenomena is only in touch, taste, sight, etc. So this idea of heaven did not give full satisfaction to all. Yet Nachiketa asks, as the second boon, about some sacrifice through which people might attain to this heaven. There was an idea in the Vedas that these sacrifices pleased the gods and took human beings to heaven. In studying all the religions, you will notice the fact that whatever is old becomes holy. What a truth. In studying all the religions, you will notice the fact that whatever is old becomes holy. For instance, our forefathers in India used to write on birch bark. but in time they learned how to make paper. Yet the birch bark is still looked upon as very holy. When the utensils in which they used to cook in ancient times were improved upon, the old ones became holy. And nowhere is this idea more kept up than in India. Old methods, which must be 9 or 10,000 years old, as of rubbing two sticks together to make fire, are still followed. At the time of sacrifice, no other method will do. So with the other branch of the Asiatic Aryans, their modern descendants still like to obtain fire from lightning, showing that they used to get fire in this way. Even when they learned other customs, they kept up the old ones, which then became holy. So with the Hebrews, they used to write on parchment. They now write on paper, but parchment is very holy. And if you see the old copies of the Torah, they're parchment copies, the ones that they carry, and they're very holy. So with all nations, every rite which you now consider holy was simply an old custom, and the Vedic sacrifice were of this nature. In course of time, as they found better methods of life, their ideas were much improved. Still, these old forms remained, and from time to time they were practiced and received a holy significance. Excuse me, I'm going to check the time. Oh, good. Then a body of men made it their business to carry on the sacrifices. These were the priests who speculated on the sacrifices, and the sacrifices were everything to them. The gods came to enjoy the fragrance of the sacrifices, and it was considered that everything in this world could be got by the power of sacrifices. If certain oblations were made, certain hymns chanted, certain peculiar forms of altars made, the gods would grant everything. So Nachiketas asks, by what form of sacrifice can a man go to heaven? The second boon was also readily granted by Yama, who promised that this sacrifice would henceforth be called after Nachiketas, and it still is called the Nachiketas sacrifice. Then the third boon comes, and with that the Upanishad proper begins. Now, let me just remark, the Katha Upanishad was Swami Vivekananda's favorite Upanishad. He had absolutely inhaled this Upanishad. It was part of the fiber of his being. Then the third boon comes, and with that the Upanishad proper begins. The boy said, there is this difficulty. When a man dies, some say he is. There is this difficulty. When a man dies, some say he is, others that he is not. Instructed by you, I desire to understand this. But Yama was frightened. He had been very glad to grant the other two boons. Now he said, the gods in ancient times were puzzled on this point. This subtle law is not easy to understand. Choose some other boon, O Nachiketas. Do not press me on this point. Release me. The boy was determined and said, what you have said is true, O Death, that even the gods had doubts on this point, and it is no easy matter to understand. But I cannot obtain another exponent like you, and there is no other boon equal to this. Death said, ask for sons and grandsons who will live 100 years, many cattle, elephants, gold and houses, Ask for empire on this earth and live as many years as you like, or choose any other boon which you think equal to these, wealth and long life. Or be thou a king, O Nachiketas, on the wide earth. I will make thee the enjoyer of all desires. Ask for all these desires, which are difficult to obtain in this world. These heavenly maidens who, with chariots and music, which are not to be obtained by man, are yours. Let them serve you, O Nachiketas, but do not question me as to what comes after death. Now, as you read the Katha Upanishad, it is so moving to see what Nachiketas says in response. Nachiketas replied, "These are merely things of a day, O death. They wear away the energy of all the sense organs. Even the longest life is very short. These houses, or these horses and chariots, dancers and songs, may remain with thee. These horses and chariots, dances and songs may remain with me. Man cannot be satisfied by wealth. Can we retain wealth when we behold thee? We shall live only as long as thou desires. Only the boon which I have asked is chosen by me." Yama was pleased with this answer and said, "Perfection is one thing, and enjoyment is another. These two, having different ends, engage men differently. He who chooses perfection becomes pure. He who chooses enjoyment misses his true end. Both perfection and enjoyment present themselves to man. The wise man, having examined both, distinguishes one from the other. He chooses perfection as being superior to enjoyment, but the foolish man chooses enjoyment for the pleasure of his body. O Nachiketa, having thought upon the things which are only apparently desirable, thou hast wisely abandoned them." Death then proceeded to teach Nachiketas. We now get a very developed idea of renunciation and Vedic morality, that until one has conquered the desires for enjoyment, the truth will not shine in him. So long as these vain desires of our senses are clamoring, and as it were, dragging us towards every moment, dragging us outwards every moment. So long as these vain desires of our senses are clamoring, and as it were, dragging us outwards every moment, making us slaves to everything outside, to a little color, a little taste, a little touch, notwithstanding all our pretensions, how can the truth express itself in our hearts? So just think about what the Swami just said. As long as we're looking outward, no matter how sophisticated, how fine the food, how fine the music, how fine any of it is, it's outward. Until we turn inward, how can the truth express itself in our hearts, which is where the truth expresses itself? This is where we find the truth, in our hearts. It is the seat of all true understanding. So before we wind up, we have just 4 minutes left. This is where we'll start next week. So we'll start with what Yama said. How can the truth express itself in our hearts? Any comments or questions from anyone?
You mentioned about the Nachiketa sacrifice, and I didn't get what is that sacrifice.
Oh, it's a Vedic sacrifice that is said to assure your proper place in heaven.
Okay.
Now, mind you, for the wise, for those who are determined to manifest their divinity, heaven is not the goal. Heaven is a much lesser. So notice that the 3 boons that Nachiketas asks for are in a hierarchy. The first is very immediate, and life with his father. May we have a sweet life with his father. The second has to do with the normal idea of what happens at death. We go to heaven, or we enjoy the fruits of our merits. The third boon goes beyond. So the first 2 are within the realm of time, space, and causation. The third is not. And this is why Yama is so determined to test Nachiketas to see if he really wants the transcendent knowledge, or whether he can be tempted by the highest form of heaven on earth, so to speak. Thank you so much.
Brother
Thank you.
do you think that Nichiketas is testing Yama Dharmaraja?
No.
Like the boy is so illumined already.
Well, he certainly is very clear in his priorities.
Yes.
But I don't think he's testing.
You don't think he is? Okay.
No, I think he's simply asking for what he
Asking
wants.
the questions.
He's very sincere.
Extremely.
The first he says, when I return to worldly life, I wanted to be harmonious with my father, which is a sweet wish.
Yes.
The wish of a son.
Thank you.
I understand that wish very, very profoundly. The second wish has to do with, there's this idea that we go on from here to enjoy the fruits of our merits. What about that? And so that's the subtle life, but still within time, space, and causation. The third is he says, I want you to tell me the mystery of death. And Yama tests him and says, oh, ask for anything else, anything. I'll give you what even heaven can't give you, and I'll give it to you now and on this earth. And Nachiketa says,
He didn't want it.
well, he just correctly identifies it. He says, no matter how long it lasts, it's still going to end.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't be any different than I was when I went into that experience. That's not my goal. So that's where he says, no, give me the transcendent understanding. And no, I don't think he's testing Yama. I think he's very sincere in his requests.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Swami Vivekananda, in writing about the kata, never suggests that Nachiketas is standing above Yama and testing him.
Yes.
We have to stand above someone to test them.
And you're right. As long as, and Swami is right too, as long as we're looking externally for finding ourselves, we will never find it. Only internal. Mother Teresa says God is the trend of silence. So that is where we have to go to see our God that resides in our silence conscience.
Yes.
Right. I truly agree with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Divya.
I was thinking of, Yama as the first man who died and going to, that the kingdom, where he lives. And I was thinking of how it compares to the fall of man in the Bible, because here you have, well, the irony, I guess, is that Yama never dies,
Well,
or
not
realizes that
in subtle form.
But with Adam, he, I suppose, falls because, or loses immortality because of, I guess, attachment.
Actually, Adam is not the first man who dies. It's Abel.
So Adam does not die in the Bible.
Well, he dies, but well after his son Abel dies.
After his son.
According to the Judeo-Christian formulation, the first death was Cain slew Abel.
Yes. And then, when Yama says man can never be satisfied with wealth, I was just reminded something about that way he said it reminded me of this speech by Martin Luther King.
Well remembered.
Which was called Birth of a New Nation. Birth of a New Nation, ironically enough. And he says there's something in the soul that cries out for freedom.
Yes.
There's something deep down within the very soul of man that reaches out for Canaan. Men cannot be satisfied with Egypt. They try to adjust to it for a while. Many men have vested interests in Egypt, and they're slow to leave. Egypt makes it profitable to them. So some people profit by Egypt. The vast majority, the masses of people never profit by Egypt, and they're never content with it. And eventually they rise up and begin to cry out for Canaan's land.
Yes, this is a very beautiful use of the Exodus metaphors.
Yes.
Beautiful use of the Exodus metaphors. And each of us must stop being a slave and follow Moses into Canaan's land. That's one way of talking about it. Anything else from anyone? Thank you, Divya. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Aaron.
Where is the place where Ramakrishna visited where they burned the bodies? And I think, was it Ramakrishna who said that when this place where the bodies were burned, that these souls would achieve liberation
Well,
by being burned at this location.
it was Benares or Varanasi or Kashi, and he had the vision of people being put on the funeral pyre. He was in a boat on the Ganges, watching these funeral pyres, and he saw Shiva whispering the mantra of liberation in the person's ear, and Mother Shakti, Kali, untying the knots of the heart. We can either do this work before of untying the knots of the heart. This is another metaphor for our predicament, the knots of the heart. And so he saw Mother untying the knots of the heart and Shiva whispering the mantra of liberation in the subtle body's ear. And so then when that entity, that Jiva, left the body, they became Jivan Mukta. They became liberated. So it was in Benares. And of course, it wasn't Sri Ramakrishna that discovered this. This has been, he just actually witnessed what was happening. It's an old legend that those who leave the body in Benares, Varanasi, Kashi, those are three names for the same place, that they are liberated, that they are given that which is necessary, that they will not need to take another body. They'll take the path of the saints, the solar path.
Was he in Samadhi when he had this vision?
Oh, Aaron, I don't remember. I'd look it up. He was in an ecstatic state. You don't see things like that in your ordinary frame of consciousness, but I don't remember just exactly how he described his state of mind at the time. He was in an elevated state of consciousness the whole time he was in Benares. The whole place just sent him into an ecstatic mood. So just exactly, but you can look it up. It's in. I think there's a description of it in the gospel. I don't remember for sure. I'm pretty sure there is, but it certainly is a more full description in Swami Sardananda's book. One translation is called The Great Master. Another by Swami Chaitananda is Sri Ramakrishna, His Divine Play. And but for us to think that we understand Sri Ramakrishna's states of mind is probably not very accurate. Anything else from anyone? This is wonderful. This is what we should be doing.
Just one comment, Brother Shankara. Even in today now in Hindu culture, when people die after cremation, we take the ashes and mix in Ganges or any other river, sacred rivers in India.
Yes.
That has been the belief that is sacred to do that.
Yes, the dissipation of the ashes and the returning them to put them in a body of running water.
That's right.
Disperses them and purifies them.
Purifies the soul.
One final time. No, the soul is already long gone.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It just has to do with purifying the remains.
I see.
The soul, whatever state the soul is, was, in, is it's not going to be affected by what happens to the ashes.
Uh-huh. Okay, thank you.
It's just, but it is considered auspicious nevertheless.
But also just the attachment is not in the body, you know, like with cremation, as opposed to maybe burial or even embalming, there is this preservation of the body that's somehow happening.
Yes.
But with cremation, and you know, in the Hindu way, it's like what Mother said, this body, and of course Sri Ramakrishna too also said it, this body is but 3 pounds of ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know,
There's something subtle about the relationship of the ashes to, particularly to sacred beings, holy beings. You know, this is why they're regarded as relics.
mm,
But I don't think it benefits us much to dwell on it. We have more auspicious things to dwell on.
yeah, it's interesting how that, like, you see that, for example, in the pyramids, right?
Oh yes.
With the preservation of the body and the, you know, like all the things that were sacred or beloved to the departed are arranged in the tomb, or you know, the relics that of the saints that are kept. It's
Well, the business of burying, the Egyptians had this apparently accurate, because it was very widespread. It existed also in the Andes.
mm,
This accurate idea that there was a realm of existence, which is part of, Yama has more than one realm. That where you can take your soldiers and your horses and your this and that with you, and sustain yourself in that realm. As Vivekananda has been pointing out to us, it's rather a pointless thing. Nachiketas says, so okay, now you've done it in the subtle realm as well as, but that's the subtle realm is not the spiritual.
mhm.
So anything else, dears? All right. Om Hari Om. Let there be peace in outer space. Let there be peace in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. Let there be peace in the herbs, the plants, and the trees. May the gods be peaceful. May the whole universe be pervaded by peace. Let this infinite universal peace prevail throughout my being. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. And may you go forward in the divine being's loving and protective embrace. The next opportunity we'll have to get together, if you're so moved, is on Saturday
Thank you, Darshan.
for the class on Swami Prabhavananda's collection of talks called Realizing God. And then on Sunday, the talk will be on what deserves your attention from the Jnana Yoga perspective. What is it that the Jnana Yoga teachers tell us deserves our attention to make progress on the path of Advaita Vedanta? So, until we see one another again, dear ones, it's been so good to be with you. And until next time.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Hari Om.
Thank you, Hari Om.